This explainer is based on the works of Professor V. Harkiskinov. We're going to explore the unique and really fascinating logic of information law. You see, most law, the law we've known for centuries, governs a physical world, a world we can see, a world we can touch. But information law has to operate in a digital realm, a place with no physics, no inherent rules. And that presents an incredible challenge. It means the law can't just regulate what's already there. It has to first build the very world it intends to govern.
So here's the path we'll take to understand this. First, we'll look at the core problem, this idea of no physics online. Then we'll see the solution, how law becomes an architect. We'll break down the two pillars of its logic and uncover what we call the iron law of sequence. After that, we'll touch on how this all evolves with the rise of AI, and finally, we'll explore the fundamental conflict that defines this entire field, law versus code.
All right, let's start with that first point, the problem, the core deficit that information law has to address. And what is that deficit? It's something so simple, yet it's incredibly profound. Our entire legal system, built up over hundreds of years, fundamentally relies on physical realities. Realities that just vanish the moment you enter cyberspace.
Just look at this contrast. It really tells the whole story. In the material world, the law has anchors. It has physical facts to hold on to. If I steal your wallet, it's physically missing from your pocket. A contract signed in ink is a unique physical object. But in the virtual environment, everything changes. Information can be copied 1,000,000 times perfectly. A digital document can be changed, leaving no trace of the original. Without those physical borders, without those limitations, the very foundation of traditional law starts to crumble.
So, because of this, information law has to do something extraordinary. Before it can even think about regulating anything, it first has to create what we call a virtual legal reality. It has to invent, from scratch, artificial substitutes for all those physical guarantees we just take for granted. It has to build a world where a digital signature can have the exact same legal weight as one made with a pen, and where a digital action is seen as legally valid, secure, and real.
And this leads us to the solution, which is really the central metaphor for understanding this whole field. We have to see law not as a passive regulator, but as an active builder. It shifts its role. It's no longer just a referee on the sidelines. It becomes the architect of our entire digital environment.
Think about what this really means. In traditional property law, the law doesn't have to define what a house is. The house physically exists. The law just regulates how you buy and sell it. But online, it's a totally different story. The law can't just command you to sign the document. It has to go back a step. It must first, legally and technically, define what an electronic signature even is. It has to construct the entire concept out of code before it can grant it any legal power.
So if the law is an architect, what's in the blueprint? Well, the entire design rests on two main pillars. We call them statics and dynamics. Think of statics as the foundation, the very structure of the building. And dynamics, that's everything that happens inside that structure. It's the activity, the life.
Let's start with the first pillar, statics. This is the constructive part of the law. Its job is to answer the most fundamental questions you need for any legal system to work. Before you can do anything meaningful online, the law has to build the tools to answer, who am I online? That's electronic identification. Where's the official truth recorded? Those are electronic registers. And how do I express my will in a way the law recognizes? That's through electronic documents. Okay, so once that static foundation, that skeleton is in place, then the second pillar, dynamics, can come into play. This is the regulatory part. It takes all those tools built by statics and uses them to make complex processes possible. Things like e-commerce or e-democracy or even e-justice. This is where the digital world really starts to come alive.
Here's a really simple way to think about the difference. Statics is constructive. It's like building the digital roads and the cars that will drive on them. Dynamics is regulative. It's creating the rules of the road. It's pretty clear, right? You can't have rules for traffic until you have the roads and the cars. In the same way, you absolutely need a system for e-identification before you can ever have a working system for e-commerce.
This dependency, this logical order, brings us to what is quite possibly the single most important rule you need to understand in this entire field. It's a simple, unbreakable principle. And once you get it, everything else just clicks into place. It's called the iron law of sequence.
And the law is incredibly simple. You must build the foundation before you can build the house. Let's take an example. You simply cannot have a secure system for electronic voting
which is a regulative or dynamics process, if you haven't first constructed a completely reliable system for electronic identification. Trying to do it the other way around, well, that's like trying to enforce traffic laws on a road that hasn't even been paved yet. It's impossible.
So this is the key. This one phrase really unlocks the entire logic of information law. Construction always precedes regulation. Anytime you see an attempt to regulate a digital process without first building and securing its underlying architecture, you know it's doomed to fail. It's always a two-step process. First, you build the tools. Then, and only then, you regulate how they're used. Of course, the world doesn't stand still. This logic we've been discussing is now evolving because we're entering what you might call a hybrid society. It's no longer just about a human being using a computer as a tool. Now we have a new kind of partner in our digital lives, and that partner is artificial intelligence.
And this introduces a really fascinating new layer of complexity. For all of history, law has focused on human will, on human intention, but now it's being asked to regulate something entirely new: algorithmic will. These are the automated decisions made by AI systems. Just think about a self-driving car having to make an ethical choice in a potential accident, or an algorithm deciding who is or isn't approved for a loan. Suddenly the question becomes, who is legally responsible? The law is racing to adapt to this new reality.
All of this, it all culminates in a fundamental tension, a conflict that runs underneath every single topic we've discussed today. It's the great struggle that is actively shaping our digital future right now. The battle between the rule of law and the rule of code.
And here's what that clash looks like. On one side, you have the rule of code. This is the idea that whatever is technologically possible simply becomes the new reality. For instance, if a social media algorithm is programmed to hide certain types of content, then for the people using that platform, that content effectively ceases to exist. But on the other side, you have the rule of law, and it pushes back hard. It insists that our fundamental legal principles, our rights, must be the things that dictate how code is written. That technology is a tool that must serve the law and not the other way around.
And that, right there, is the ultimate mission of information law. Its entire structure, the architecture, those two pillars, the iron law of sequence, all of it is aimed at achieving one single goal: to impose a human-centric legal order over the raw and frankly indifferent logic of technology. It's about making sure our digital world is governed by our values, not just by what the code allows.
So why does any of this matter? Why should you care? Because this isn't just some abstract legal theory. We're talking about how the very reality you interact with every single day is being constructed. We are talking about the fight to guarantee your individual rights in a world that's increasingly online. And maybe most importantly, we're talking about how to keep the human being at the absolute center of the system, especially in an age of ever more powerful AI. And that brings us to a final, critical question that I want to leave you with. In a world that is increasingly run by code, a world where algorithms shape more and more of our lives and our societies, who should be the final architect? Who do we want holding the blueprints to our digital future, the programmer or the lawmaker?